Hello and welcome everyone to NorthStar Community. We do our online talks and our weekly online talks. And so today, I'm so glad to have John sitting here with us. And he's been a long time NorthStar Community, what do we call you? Member, attendee, however we want to call you. But you've been coming for a while. and a highly valuable participant too. And Jonathan's had a story, his family upbringing and some stuff that happened is a story. And so today, what we want to talk about is this concept called complicated grief. And this is where we lose someone special to us, who we love, but also someone who maybe betrayed us or wasn't there for us emotionally like they should have been or could have been. And for many of us in our addiction recovery, you obviously you're watching this, so you're in some form of recovery. I'm sure a lot of you can really relate to this. And so Jonathan graciously said he would join me today and just put his perspective. His mother's funeral was today, so I really appreciate this coming on. And so let me share a couple scriptures with us. The first one is Romans 7:1-15. I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate to do. And think about for our own lives, we all can relate to that. There's things we just cannot stop doing in our addictive behaviors, our hurts, habits, and hang-ups. But maybe we should think about, for many of us who have had childhood where maybe our parents weren't there like they should have been, or maybe they abandoned us, or maybe they were abusive, or maybe you had adults in your life as a child that were abusive, and all those kind of things. And and then this person, you're now in a state where you need to grieve for them because they were special in your life in some way, but yet you have some difficult times as well. And so I think, Jonathan, this would be, a good subject for you to talk with us about. And I'm going to do one more here, and this is Galatians 2:19. For through the law, I died to the law so that I might live for God. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. So that's the good part. We can, all the things we've done, we know that we're now forgiven as Christians. So, Jonathan, I don't know how you want to do this, if you want to share a little bit about your childhood or however you want to do it. I'm going to leave it to you. And I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. So, I'll start out with, so we just had my mother's funeral. And it starts off with my mother in a big way back as a child. And it starts off in a Christian community. You could almost call it a cult-like community, but she was basically abandoned by her group and created an outcast when my mother and father divorced at the age of about 33, and there were 4 kids. And so everything she knew and everything in her world had collapsed. And of course, when you're a kid and you're going through what comes next, you don't know the why. All you know is the experience you're going through. But my mother, she did a lot of things. She was very toxic to me in general, most of us kids, but I'd say I, being the eldest of the 4, caught a lot of I was the man of the house. That was put on me at the very early age, which you're just a kid. You don't know what you're doing.
Like, how old were you when you were told that? Do you remember?
So that started probably about 11 years old when my mother and father separated. Yeah. So you start that burden, and of course, some of that is a religious text of the man of the house kind of thing, but your children. Anyway, so going forward, a lot of bad stuff happened with us kids. Mom, I'm trying to think of some of our living conditions were just horrible. She would try to make do. Food, a block of cheese, shredded wheat, and some powdered milk. But here in this funeral, I'm gonna bounce around a little bit. So I'm sitting in this funeral and I'm listening to all these testimonies of memories of my mother, and there was a point where I realized, can you imagine being the parent of the kids that are eating the block of cheese and the shredded wheat and the So why is it 55 years that I'm just now seeing that one little aspect? I couldn't see. All I could see was through my eyes. I wasn't seeing my mother's eyes.
Right.
So that's just something to think about. But I'm trying to think of some of the first things that happened to us as kids. Me personally, about age 15, we went through some abuse within the family, and we had to put a person in prison because of it, and that was directly related to. And it's my sibling, so it was just a horrible event. You're going through these things, and you basically want to kill people. But you can't do anything about it. You can't even drive. The anger, the resentment, all this stuff, and because you're supposed to be the man of the household, how come you didn't prevent it? Right. So damaging, very complex things that as these things are unfolding as a child, you don't know why you're feeling the way you feel. You're just going through it, right. And then all these things can add up. Then at 17, my mother attempted a suicide on Christmas, and I found her at her ex-boyfriend's house with a note, and she was out cold, couldn't wake her up, had to call the rescue squad and all that mess.
And how old were you again?
So that was 17 when that happened.
17. That's a tough thing to come upon.
It was, what do you do with that? Right. But what came after it is where we get into some of this complex stuff. She then told a lie that it was the father-in-law. He became my father-in-law because I married his daughter. So that was a complicated situation. Yeah, which she told a lie saying that he was the cause of it. That basically had thrown her off the balcony and just a bunch of mess. So going forward, I end up marrying my first wife. So what do you think went with that? This massive wedge of this lie, right? She knew her father didn't do it, and I'm trying to defend my mother, but also knowing I don't really believe it. So that had catastrophic effects with us. It's just this marching on of chaos within life. And then, of course, my father, that's another who has just recently passed within the last couple of years. He was very damaged and was basically leading I would call a closet homosexual life. He had 4 children, but he also had those demons he fought his entire life. And of course, my mother used that, which there's some probably truth to it, but used that when they got divorced and then criminalized him for the rest of his life to us. So that was always put in our face. Our father's this, from early ages. So when I'm talking, let's look at my brothers and sisters and the damage this could have caused for all of us. So that started at the age of 12. My brother's 3 years younger. Mm-hmm. Lisa's 7 years younger, and then Melissa 9 years younger. So all this is implanted in us at young ages going forward. There's a lot of truth in it, but that's where we come with this we call this complex. It's very complicated. So you go through adult life, you're going through all this stuff. As the oldest child, my mother, and I think being the son, demanded this justification from me, or my, what's the right word? My agreeance to that. In other words, everything's okay. Everything I did was to agree with her lies, basically, or to justify her. Well, it couldn't be done. There were too many lies, and some of the stuff were just plain simple lies. So every time we would get together as a family, Mom would bring up the past. I would forgive my mother. It took a while, midlife, to where I could get to the place where I forgave her. But what the
Can I
relationship.
ask you something?
Yeah.
What got you to that point? How were you able to forgive her?
Because I knew it was just eating me up.
Okay,
The damage
makes
I was
sense.
doing on myself.
Gotcha.
And if I didn't let it go, it would just be like a cancer. But how much did it change? It changed me more than it actually changed her, I would say. I was able to deal with her a little bit better.
Right.
But the point I'm trying to make is my mother would just constantly bring up the past. And I would have to just forgive every time I'm with her. It's like, and you don't have it in you. You wear out. It's exhausting. It's damaging. I mean, it's just, so let's circle back to today. We are at my mother's funeral, and I wasn't even going to speak because I didn't feel like I had a lot of good things to say, and I didn't want to say anything negative about my mother. And I'm listening to all the testimonies, and what I realized is my mother affected everyone differently.
Yeah, good catch.
Everyone.
Yep, you're right.
And she was actually the type of person. Now, by the way, my mother was a believer, and she died a believer. That's the incredible beauty of all this, is that she, like Paul says, she won the race.
Yep.
She may not have won it, but she finished it.
She tripped over some hurdles.
She tripped over lots of hurdles.
Yep.
And us along with her.
Yep.
But the amazing thing I was seeing with all these testimonies, and I kind of had to set the record straight a little bit because it was all good. And I'm like, this is not serving anybody. It's wonderful to talk all the wonderful things, and it is supposed to be about honoring her life, but that was more to it. People need to hear the truth in many cases, because you can learn from it and then you can help others if you're just honest. So I ended up getting up and speaking a little bit, but where was I going? I sat there and realized, because I kept telling people, if you were to ask me right now, I had 10 years and 4 months that were good with my mother. That 10 years being the first 10 years of my life, which were incredible, and the last 4 months. And it's like, why did it have to be this way? So you start questioning yourself, and we all know that we could work on ourselves and be better. So I'm like, okay, how much of it was me? How much of it was her? Well, we can do that all day long. We know it was both of us. But there are boundaries that if we're going to be any type of healthy person, you have to have some. So self-preservation is not a.
And it's what a great thing. I mean, what a great subject is, because we talk all the time about with toxic people, set boundaries,
right.
Be healthy with them, limit them. Also, and now we're talking about your mother,
right?
And so it makes this so tough.
Yeah, because you want a relationship. You know, we love our parents. You can't help it. It's in us. Yeah. But they can be very damaging.
Well, it can jump into. So I think the other thing that adds to this is that some of the real hurt in your family was I'm trying to come up with the word. I want to say more than put upon. I mean, it was inflicted on your family by quote unquote religious people.
It started.
That adds to this.
It does add to it, because it makes you question God. Of course, any rational person would question religion in general.
Yeah. I mean, you could easily say, "Where was God?"
Right.
Yeah.
But I can look back and go, I knew He was right there the whole time.
You probably can, but in the moment you may.
But in the moments, and as you're going through things, you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. As the world would say, you believe in your sky daddy, but no, He's real. But on that topic, my brother was boundaries. You know, he had gotten up and spoken about how he had intentionally created boundaries with my mother,
right.
And that he was kind of lamenting because he was seeing, it's just overwhelming emotional. You're seeing all these pictures of the past and all this stuff of her childhood, and you're realizing your parents just another person like you going through whatever they're going through. But Jason's like, in a little way, he's lamenting that he had put that space. I'm like, no, there was a reason you had that space.
Yeah,
it was a boundary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was never a time where I was judging him today.
No.
I was like, that's probably a good idea.
Absolutely. And that's why I said out loud to him, do not beat yourself up.
Right.
Because there was a reason. She was very toxic and damaging. And so all of us are not as strong as others. Some of us can handle more in our boundary situations. So our boundaries are very individual and unique. As you become a stronger person, you can actually handle more.
Right. Or a healthier person.
Right.
Probably
A healthier
better,
person. Yeah, stronger, health. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So never beat yourself up for a boundary. If you can move the boundary as you get healthier, great.
And I think you're now stating a to-do list here.
Right.
Is that.
To getting healthy.
Set boundaries when you need to.
Yeah.
Don't feel guilty about them
Mm-hmm.
if they're legit, right? If they're the right thing to do. And then in the case where you lose someone, you did the right thing. It's easy to forget why you did it.
Oh, yeah.
And then you hear all these, at a funeral, everybody's like this and that. And you're like, well, maybe I should feel bad about this. But I don't, like with your brother, I was like, that was probably a good idea.
Right. And I was... So I openly stated that I was relieved that my mother had passed. I love my mother, but I was both relieved for her, because by the way, it was cancer, stage 4, that she had a very quick and timely, very quick, it was a blessing how fast she went.
It was.
For her sake, and then I'm sitting here going, dude, are you just an evil, self-centered bastard for feeling like, why am I relieved?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm relieved for a reason, because it was that she demanded that much on me that it was painful. It was constant pain.
Right.
So that last 4 months we had great.
So is it too strong to say that your mother had a childlike, like she was almost childlike with you at times?
The roles had almost reversed. Yeah,
right. That's
the parental role.
Thank you for trying to say
at
that.
one point, she looked for me to be the head of the household.
Yeah.
And put off. And of course, back then I was begging for her to find a man. But watch what you wish for, right? Yeah. Unhealthy people attract unhealthy people.
That is true.
And then you end up in more problems, which my mother experienced.
Yeah.
But like I said, she's living her own healing, and by the way, you guys, the ending story of this to my mother is that her entire process was a healing process, and what she overcame was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was just the very different dynamics that each individual in her that had relationships with her had. Like I'm sitting here listening to my niece have this experience with her grandmother. Well, it was the same experience I had for the first 10 years of my life, which was awesome. But I couldn't have that in those. How old is she now? 21. Mm-hmm. So for the past 21 years, she's experienced that 10-year period I had with my mother, which was I'm seeing for the first time, going, wow, because she didn't demand the stuff on her that she demanded on me.
Right.
And so I'm like, wow, like the topic, very complicated.
Yes, it is complicated.
Very, very complicated.
And I guess for you guys watching this, a lot of you are relating to this. A lot of you are.
Yeah, it's painful to go through. I mean, losing anybody is painful. I think you have to go through these processes just to. Like, I didn't have any plans to speak. I was like, what do I need to say? I don't need this. I needed it. Mm-hmm. I needed this closure. I needed to actually just talk out my feelings. And everybody was coming up later going, so glad you spoke. because people could relate.
Yep.
So
That's why you're sitting with me now.
Yeah. So I guess one of the biggest things I'm taking away from this experience at the moment, yes, there probably were some things I could have done a little different to help my mother's relationship, and yes, there was some she could obviously do to help it. We did our best. We loved each other. And that's all you can do. You still have to maintain the boundaries where you have to maintain them.
And if I jump in, one of the things we talk about at NorthStar Summit is the kind of, I guess, the psychology of regret. Maybe that's not quite the right word, but a lot of times when we have regret, what this one guy talks about is we're fabulous. I mean, we're wonderful time travelers and we're fabulous storytellers. And what that means is we forget about the context. So I think this is something to hear from you today is what you're saying is there were legitimate reasons why I set boundaries with my mother, but I loved her, but I had to do it. Well, the problem is if it was 30 years ago, you can start forgetting the context.
You do.
And then you start blaming yourself and seeing yourself as callous, mean, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the fact is, what you're clearly stating is it was in your best interest to set some boundaries.
I had to.
You didn't get rid of her, but you set some boundaries.
Because yes, and when you're looking at other relationships and you're like my sisters, or why can they have this relationship with my mother that I can't? Well, I know now it's because the demands were different.
Correct. You were way older than them.
The demands were completely different.
Yep.
Even up into adulthood, she still needed my justification, which would then reopen the past. So you open the wound, and if it's a lie, well, you can't justify it, or could you? Could I have for a moment said, well, I'm just gonna let her. I don't know. I think truth matters.
You tried to say, but you couldn't do it.
Yeah, I just couldn't. And I explained that to my sisters. Like, there were times I wanted to go camping trips with you guys, but I knew I couldn't do it. It would be toxic. The experience would be toxic, and I would probably make it toxic for you guys.
You might have helped not make it fun.
Right. Because of just the dynamic of our relationship.
Yeah.
So the incredible part that I saw.
And let me jump in there for a minute. So that was probably a healthy decision on your part. Now you could be seeing that with some regret now, but don't forget the context. It might have been a good idea you didn't go.
Well, looking back, I know it wasn't. I mean, I know it was a good idea that I did not go.
But it'd be easy now. That's the point of this talk is that now it can be for you to start going, I should have gone. I shouldn't have been like that. No, the fact is it might have been much healthier the fact you didn't go.
Well, in the moment, you definitely feel like you're lesser. Like, why I'm making this, why can't I, you could tend to beat yourself up. This is my mother, this is my sisters, and you're weak. You can't overcome this and just
And then, and again, you're kind of leading to another subject, but it's a good one. Is in it just as humans, what we do with, in a way, abuse. I mean, I think we could call this abuse, right?
Some degree it is.
And what do we do with abuse? But we find ways to turn it against ourselves, and then you start feeling shame.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not hearing that you should be feeling shame.
No, but you will feel less of yourself. And look what the world does to, society in general. If you're a poor person, or you're going through this kind of stuff, or your family has this in it, well, you can't talk about that. No. So then you become part of that in your mind, which makes if you let it will make you lesser in your own mind.
Correct.
Undeserving, or you can name on and on, right? If you go down that rabbit hole. So yeah, it can be very damaging to people, and it can take a lot of time to climb out of, because if you don't understand why you do what you do.
So one of the things that I tell people that come to talk to me individually who have lost a loved one is I often say, and of course I usually know their story, but I will tell people who have not had good relationships with someone who died, I said, in the short run, you're probably going to feel better, but in the long run, you're going to have to really struggle with the complicated grief. You're going to have to figure out ways to
Very
figure it out.
complicated.
If it's someone that you were close to and you had a good relationship with, your grief is much higher at first, but then it's easier later.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a story here too, is if you've been in a situation where, like your life story with your mom is complicated. You have warm, wonderful feelings and memories of her. You have tough, whatever we want to call them, stories with your mother, and then you end with good stories. So you do have a good ending here.
I do.
Yeah, but it's going to be a journey for you.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of here, because today was a journey, just sitting through it and realizing all the different relationships. Because most of the testimony of my mother were how she would give the shirt off of her back to everyone, and I was like, wow. Now I saw that.
Well, but can I tell you what I heard on that was she wasn't protecting her family.
She wasn't.
She may have been generous to everyone else, but you guys were suffering for it. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like giving away your, like when you got begging birds over here, but you're going to give it away. I mean, I get it. God always provides, but
there were times I'm sure it was harmful to you.
There was times where those decisions were not right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, this has been very good. How would you conclude this? What you're today? And I do want to jump in here. I want to make sure you know his mother's service was today, but she actually passed away in December. So I don't want you to think. I asked Jonathan on, his mother passed away 2 days ago, and he's talking about this. This has been 3 weeks.
Yeah, we had a little bit of time to process some things.
So I just want to make sure you understand that.
Yeah, right.
I don't think I'm too cruel here.
Yeah. No, but I'll sum up the good ending. My father passed away a couple years back prior, and Mom was going to set the record straight. So digging up the past. It got to the point where we had 3 just nasty screaming matches on the phone. And I was like, Mom, I'm not talking about it. He's not even here to defend himself anymore, and I don't want to hear it. I'm so tired of hearing it. I could not do it anymore. And it literally was screaming matches. And I'm talking probably 6 months ago, maybe 8. Well, in July, we found out she was stage 4 and moved her from Charlottesville back to Richmond. And as she progressed, doing the part that I could do, thank God for my sister because she did most of the hard work. I would sit with her on Wednesdays so that they could do their thing and get a little break. And I was like, oh my God, is the past going to come up? And it never did. And what was so amazing to me about that was it was the first time that I could actually sit on the porch and just have a discussion and enjoy my mother. It was amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
But here's the thing, guys. I realized, because she knew she was at the end of her life and it didn't matter anymore. And I'm just like, why couldn't we have had this? But
you did. We should could have got it sooner.
I had it for 4 months.
Yeah, and a pretty cool 4 months.
It was a good 4 months.
Yeah.
And Mom did some amazing things. Just some real little, just awesome things happened right there at the end that made things really special for everybody, all of us. So yeah, it was a good ending. Mom didn't suffer long, so we were all blessed for that. I mean, she went super fast when it came down to the home care part. Yeah. So there was God spared her and spared us which could have been a nasty drug out thing. But anyway, hopefully somebody can relate to what I'm talking about. And then, by the way, I just touched on some of the highlights of what we went through because we just don't have time.
Right.
It was
a rich life. It was a full life. How's that? It was tough. Yeah. But and the good news is that you and your 3 siblings have landed on your feet pretty well for what it could have been. And I, love all of you. I think you're awesome people. So you might have did some things good.
She did.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so thanks for joining us. I so appreciate you doing this.
No, it was good. I
just think it's good I know a lot of you out there understand what Jonathan's talking about. And if your parents are still alive, this is a tough one because for some of you, you'll never be able to reconcile or get things better. You had the gift of at least a 4-month time period where things pretty good.
Yeah.
But if your parents, if this person harmed you still alive, and somehow it would make sense to do something, do so, but you certainly don't have to. Toxic people sometimes belong right where they are, which is out of your life. So I'm not telling you what to do here, but if you have any questions, please feel free to, you can email me at csimpson@wgva.church, and I'd love to talk to you about it. And Jonathan, again, sorry for loss of your mom, but I think today was a bit of a healing day.
It was healing for everybody.
Yeah.
It was.
And so again, NorthStar community, we meet on Wednesdays and Fridays at 6:30. We feed you. We have childcare. We take away all excuses for you not to come. And because I know how it is, if you say, I'm going to go home and sit down for a minute, we know we probably won't see you. So you're always welcome. We're here to support you. We're not here to tell you what to do or any of that. And we just we believe that Jesus Christ is our higher power. And we believe in his love and his power and his active, ongoing life with us. He's a alive and living Savior. So it's a great thing. And so if you have questions, email me. And let's close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this sharing of a powerful, powerful story. And we thank you for Jonathan's journey in this, and how he's maintained his love of you, Christ, and God. He sees your actions. And so we just thank you, and we thank you for Linda and her Christian legacy she left for her children and for others around her. And we know this all will make sense one day. So we just thank you and praise you, God, for you loving us so much that we can recover. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.